the Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
He is the son of the godfather of heavy metal. That's right, Ozzy Osbourne, an icon in hard rock and heavy metal, was in Black Sabbath, famous for biting the head off of a bat. Or was it a pigeon? His mother, Sharon Osbourne, hosts a talk show and a manager for a lot of rock bands, and big ones, by the way. One might assume that with parents like this, you could ultimately get kind of screwed up, you know? No job, maybe substance abuse. You know, not the first time that you ever heard of something like that going on. Not with Jack Osbourne. He has a whole bunch of projects going on, and Jack is also the president of the soon-to-be-launched Osbourne Media House. TV shows, podcasts, creating a lot of content, and good stuff, too. My producer says, hey, I could get Jack Osbourne on Celebrity Jobber, but we only got about 10 minutes with him. Can we make it work? I said, absolutely. So here we go. My guest this week on Celebrity Jobber, Jack Osbourne. How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. So, you know, how would you, if you were meeting somebody for the very first time and they didn't know you and you didn't know them, how would you describe your occupation? What would you tell them it is that you do?
My go-to is I just say like, I work in TV production. That's usually when people ask me, what do you do? I'm like, I'm working TV production.
Right.
And if they push it further, I'm like, I make paranormal shows, and I'm always very vague about telling people what I do, just because I don't know. I think my assumption is just when I've met people, it's always self-serving. Like, I produce TV shows, and I'm a host, and I'm this, and I'm that. I don't know. It's just not my style.
Well, no, I tend
to downplay it.
No, I understand that. I was just saying, like, there's so many different things that you do and that you're a part of. So I just wanted to know, what you thought you were. Like, what did you want to be when you were younger?
When I was younger, I wanted to join the Army. Like, that was my...
Really?
That was my vibe. Yeah. I wanted to go do Army stuff. And I never in a million years, like, as a kid, like, if someone said to me, it came up to me when I was 11 years old and was like, hey, you're going to make TV shows and host TV shows and and go around the world and do some really crazy things, I would have just laughed.
Because I would have imagined that, growing up the way that you grew up, you would probably just assume that you would kind of go into that world of show business.
Yes and no. Like, it wasn't anything my parents, like, overtly expressed that they wanted us to get involved in. It was, my dad was a musician. I wasn't particularly interested in being a musician. And if anything, I would have, I liked the music industry side of things. Like, I liked record labels and that kind of vibe. So that's something that I was interested in pursuing at a young age.
Okay, so
but never being like on camera or anything like that.
Right. So tell me a little bit about growing up. When the Osbournes show is, you're a teenager and you've got these strangers in your house, filming your family 24/7. Was that a little traumatic? How did that affect you growing up?
It was definitely odd. It took some adjustment. Like, none of us were really prepared for how things went with that show. Like, because my dad was a musician. He wasn't a TV star. He wasn't. And he wasn't on MTV a huge amount because he was this kind of, he was like this crazy rock star, and they wanted Madonna on MTV. They didn't want Ozzy Osbourne. So it was definitely a shock to the entire family when the show was as successful as it was, and it completely, it opened us up to a whole new world.
I mean, do you consider that, I know you're kind of a different guy, you're not like an ordinary guy, but do you consider that like your big break?
Sure, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
I would have, I would have no career in television if I hadn't done the Osbournes. It was a lightning in a teacup, and it opened up this whole career now that I've been consistently working in TV for 22 years now.
That's awesome.
A while to think about.
That's awesome. And I'm so glad that you brought back the Osbournes in podcast form, because we all didn't know, is this going to be Jack? Is this going to be the whole family? People, heard about it, but didn't quite know what to expect. And now we do.
Thank you. Yeah. It's been a riot to do. It was something that it took a bit of convincing on my part to get the family on board with it. But I think everyone's really enjoying it now, even to the point where it's like my mom's like calling me, being like, "Are we doing the podcast this week? How many episodes are we doing? Like, what's up? Like, we want to do more."
What was your first job, Jack? Very first job ever, paying gig?
My very first job was when I would go on tour with my dad. I used to help load out the gig. So my dad would finish the show, and then I would help break everything down and like put everything in the road cases and load the trucks. And so I started doing that at a really young age. So like coiling cables and stripping carpet from the stage, and like it was like full manual labor stuff. But I loved it. I thought it was so fun.
Dude, Jack, your first job was being a roadie for the Prince of Darkness. That's incredible.
Yeah.
When you break it down like that, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, at the ripe old age of like 11, I was doing it.
That's so cool, man. Did you go to college after high school? What did you do?
No. I got my GED, so I left school early, and I never went to college. I joke that when my youngest child goes off to college, I'll apply to college too. Okay, you got a little bit of time then, right? Yeah, I got some time. I'll be like one of those 50-year-old college students.
You ever see Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it, man. Congrats, by the way. I hear you just tied the knot.
I did, yes, absolutely.
Beautiful. Very, very happy for you. And family, everybody's good?
Everyone's great, man. That we're just, we're busy. Everyone's doing podcasting stuff. My dad, he has his own podcast coming out in like a month. We're going to drop that. So he's been having fun with it. It's just been kind of an interesting shift in how everyone's been working. So it's been fun.
And tell me, how is your health doing these days? And tell me a little bit about what you have to go through.
Sure. I got diagnosed in 2012. So, with MS, and I've been great. I've been really fortunate to, what I do to stay healthy works. And, I'm just, I count my blessings.
I mean, because you see other people, maybe celebrities or people in the public eye that are, going through a similar thing. For one, I think Christina Applegate, I was watching today. I believe she has MS, and I look at her, I look at you, and you've been diagnosed with this for 10 years, and you look relatively great, and she looks like she might be suffering a little bit.
Yeah, I like to say, MS is as unique to the individual that has it as their own fingerprint. It is so different for everyone, and that's the difficult thing with it. It's, myself or, I could meet a guy who's the same age as me, born in the same place, had a similar life, and our MS be completely different from each other.
Jack, so many different things going on. Ghosts and Grit, another podcast. How did you become fascinated with the paranormal? You have an experience to tell us about?
Sure. Yeah. I've been making paranormal TV shows for a long time now, and it was just it was a hobby of mine as a kid, and I just would research it, and I loved watching X-Files, and so I started making TV shows about it, and which led to, now doing a podcast where I have guests come on and I interview them, and they share a little bit about their paranormal experiences and if they believe in ghosts. And, we have sometimes a spirited debate back and forth about it, and we dive into their grit, like what makes them tick, what makes them want to persevere through the hard times, and because I think a common through line with any successful person is their grit.
And dude, I got to tell you, man, congrats on all your success. You're doing so many things. I'm such a fan of the World Detour show that you do with your dad. I love watching that. It's a great show. Hopefully that continues for a long time to come. But I wish your dad all the best. Hopefully he's doing well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he's doing much better these days. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I remember having the privilege of speaking to him about 15 years ago when I got my Pomeranian and asked him about, Minnie. And he was just telling me I was in for a long road with this dog crapping in the house, and he was not wrong.
Well, yeah, you guys clearly have something in common then, because he's a Pomeranian dad still to this day, so he loves his dog.
Yep, so am I. Jack Osbourne, don't forget, Fox Special Forces World's Toughest Test. His love of wanting, originally be in the Army. That might explain his reasons for being on that show. And I could talk to you for another hour, but I know you got to go, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Great chatting with you.
Take care, man. Really interesting. Jack Osbourne, by the way, president of the soon-to-be-launched Osbourne Media House. All of these little projects going to be under that umbrella. Jack isn't the typical kind of douchey, entitled child of celebrities. His mother, Sharon Osbourne, of course, one of the biggest managers in rock and roll. She's got her own talk show, very influential in the rock and roll game. Of course, his dad, Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness. He could have kind of rode that wave. He carved another path for himself. I think that says a lot about his character. Not to mention, when he was younger, he wanted to go into the Army. He wanted to be all he could be. Have some sergeant up in his face screaming at him, drop down and give me 40. I mean, talk about saying something about your character. And I know it's a lot different for Jack Osbourne being brought up in show business, growing up in Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, California. Thinking about my first jobs, did some light gardening for some neighbors around the neighborhood. I was a paper boy. I got a little older. I was a busboy at a dinner theater, worked at a golf course. Jack Osbourne, a roadie for the Prince of Darkness. First job. I thought that was pretty awesome. He's been battling MS. This has been diagnosed a little over 10 years ago. And he says the disease is unique to the individual as a fingerprint. So I thought that was pretty interesting. He seems to be handling that quite well. Again, I wish I had more time with Jack, but I definitely wanted to talk to him. So we made it work for this episode of Celebrity Jobber. If you like this podcast, please, please, please subscribe, leave a review, give us a 5-star rating. I would really, really appreciate if you did that. It helps out, believe it or not. Available wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, just about everywhere. Follow us on Instagram, Celebrity Jobber Podcast, and of course you can check out past episodes on celebrityjobber.com. I didn't know what to expect from Jack Osbourne, but I thought that was pretty cool. Not your typical guest, but a really, really good one, I think. So thanks for listening once again. This has been another episode of Celebrity Jobber. We'll see you again next week. I'm Jeff Zito.